Hi, all. Welcome. Thanks for joining in for this meeting. We're really excited about the Public Art Plan project and the process, and happy to be sharing some information and getting some thoughts from all of the attendees and beyond. So the Public Art Plan is something that we've embarked on working with Designing Local, who you're going to hear from very shortly. But before we get into that part of the presentation, I just wanted to kind of set this tone and stage and introduce the public art program a bit to center us all and help you understand who we are and why we're doing this project. Tempe Public Art is part of the Arts and Culture Division here at the city. We are made up of a lot of different opportunities to engage with arts and culture, both from historical properties to classes to live music and performance, as well as art in the built environment. Within the Arts and Culture Division, I know many of you are probably familiar with the programs that we offer. However, what you might not be aware of is the difference between the four work groups within this division. And I want to kind of give you a brief intro to each. The Tempe History Museum is located along the library campus at Southern and Rural. And the History Museum is a great resource for all things Tempe. If you want to know about your neighborhood, they are the people who have the answers. There are all kinds of documents, objects, photographs, really knowledgeable staff who can help you do your research on the history and background of the place we know as home. It's also a great setting for exhibits and live performances. They have a wonderful exhibit that just opened on November 8th about Tempe's role in the West. I highly recommend you take a visit over there. Another area is the Tempe Center for the Arts, which is our performing arts center. People who come into Tempe all the time say, "What is that amazing building?" It is an incredible building, but even more incredible are the programs that are offered within the facility. There's live music, dance, performing arts of all kinds, theater, and there's also an art gallery. So this is a place that's active for all ages. It's open and welcoming. I highly recommend a visit. The Tempe Community Arts team are the good people who bring art into the community and bring the community into the art making process. They host classes at the Edna Arts Center. They also offer events like the Tempe Jam because they support the Tempe Playlist, our local musician group list of groups, and really bring people into that active and creative process. Then you get up where our hot pink arrow is to Tempe Public Art. Our program is the group that brings artwork into the built environment, and this is in all forms of temporary art, integrated artworks, murals, sculptures, streetscapes, you name it. What's great about what we do and what differentiates us from the other groups is that we're providing an art experience throughout the built environment in places you might not even expect. When you're out riding your bike, you're walking through your neighborhood, you're walking into a recreation facility, or even when you're in the library and you happen to notice a beautiful print framed in the stacks. So we really do our best to bring artwork to every aspect of the city itself. Again, I mentioned a few ways that we do this, and this is a pretty simple simplification of the kinds of projects. We work with temporary art, which are art projects like Light Lane, which was the bicycle piece, if you saw it last April. These are works of art that are out in the public from anywhere from a weekend to 6 months, sometimes a year. They are, as you might imagine, temporary, so they are fleeting, ephemeral, and experimental in nature. But they do give an opportunity to have artwork pop up in unexpected places. We also work with the Community Development and Economic Development team on their Art and Private Development Ordinance, which requires commercial development
Josh, it looks like Rebecca may be having some difficulties. Did you
Okay,
want to run through
yes.
the presentation,
Sure,
or I
yeah.
know that, yeah, okay. Shar is on
Wasn't
as
sure if it
well.
was me or
Yeah.
or or not. Yeah, so I think Rebecca left off with neighborhood art, if I recall. So the neighborhood art program, this is run through grants that are administered to different neighborhoods around the community. I've talked to as part of this. Hey, Rebecca, we're just talking a little bit more about the neighborhood art program and some of the really incredible, like community driven artworks that are done as part of that. I know on my tour of Tempe with Rebecca, we learned a lot about those, and I've talked to a number of folks. And you're back, Rebecca, so I'll let you take it over from here.
Sorry about that. I got kicked out all of a sudden. I don't know
It's
why.
okay.
Um, so as Josh pointed out, thank you, Josh, for taking over with the neighborhood grants. We work with neighborhood services and communities when a grant is awarded and received. We also manage the pre-qualified artist list as a resource for residents and community members looking to hire an artist for these grants and other art opportunities in the city. Another area that we work on is CIP, how the city builds itself when there's a project like a park renovation, a streetscape, or an opportunity to commission an artist to work in tandem with a design team to make the project a little more unique, more site specific, and maybe provide a landmark where an artist is involved in that design.
Rebecca,
So as an
I
older,
I was just going to ask you, could you just go back and maybe run through art and private development? You got cut off just as you were explaining when art and private development needs to happen.
thank you, Joy. Yeah, art and private development happens when a commercial development is 50,000 square feet or above. And that is an ordinance within the municipal code. So we work closely with community development and the property owner and development team to ensure that artwork is available on site in a publicly accessible space. And if the owner opts not to commission an artist, they have the opportunity to provide funding in lieu of to the Municipal Arts Fund to be programmed in public art throughout the city. So that's a partnership between our team, economic development, community development, and the development community at large, both the property owner as well as the construction teams. Uh, the public art program has been around for several decades. So you might be wondering, what would this plan do? And why are we here? A public art plan creates a comprehensive plan and a vision to think about the future of planning and strategizing how public art impacts the city into the future. So it will help us identify potential locations and establish guidelines for the selecting and commissioning of artwork that we can work on as projects come in, as the city grows and changes to ensure that art is part of this built environment into future decades. Our goal here is to prioritize our planning based on community input, which you're here to join in for today, and an assessment of our current assets. We also are looking to strategize, again, how we invest to align with development and the community needs as Tempe grows and changes like all cities do. We're looking to diversify the collection to reach a broader audience and create equity in terms of the access to art throughout the city, and identify areas of the program where there are some significant strengths and maybe identify those areas where, there's some need to change and grow. So with that, we're really excited to be working with Designing Local, and I'll hand it over to Josh to lead from here.
Hi, everybody. Excited to be here and talking with everyone. So my name is Josh Lapp, as Rebecca mentioned. I am a co-founder and principal of Designing Local. We are a woman-owned business based in Columbus, Ohio. But we work all over the country. And in particular, I've been working in the Phoenix metro region since about 2016 on various projects So I've grown to really know, love, and enjoy working in the region and coming to spend time in the area. And we were particularly excited to work in Tempe, which I think is, one of the most fun and exciting cities in Arizona, of course. So our team is relatively small. We're 15 employees. There's a number of folks working on the project alongside me, and then we also have a team member based out of Philadelphia named Todd Bressi, who has been doing this work for many years, and we were very excited to collaborate with him on this project. And I think he was a former short-term resident of the region as well. So we've been doing this work for about 10 years. We have worked we have 20 plus states. It's probably more like 25 now. So we really get to have this national perspective of who and how folks are doing public art all around the country. But as the name implies, we're very focused on local strengths and building local focused programs. So we bring in that national perspective, but then we figure out, okay, the best practices are this. How do we apply those to Tempe or the other communities that we're working in? In addition to our work in public art, we also do arts and culture planning more broadly. We focus on creative placemaking, which I'll talk about a little bit, preservation, engagement, all these other components of really strong urban planning. But our main focus and one of our largest lines of business, if you will, remains to be public art planning. So why this plan? Rebecca laid out some of the key things, but we wanted to share our perspective on, why public art planning and why this process is so important. And for us, I've talked with a lot of folks already as part of this process. And what I have learned so far is that Tempe is the type of place that people really love and cherish. They cherish the local culture. And one of the questions I've asked a lot of folks is, how would you define Tempe? And that's a hard question to answer. Not everyone has an answer. But what we aim to do with public art is help visualize and make physical the characteristics that people say they really love about a community. So, with Tempe, we're still trying to define what we think that is. But we want to help artists who may or may not be based in the community to create artworks that have a natural connection to Tempe and really help tell the story. And I myself live in a community with a large university, and I think that means there's always a presence of new folks and new energy in the community. And so public art is a really great way to kind of set the scene, set the tone, and tell the story of the community to new residents, visitors, new students, folks that are coming into the community, and really just create that feel. We also, for us, it's about how do we want our places to be experienced? We want, and that's ultimately the question that we're asking as part of this planning process is, when you see public art in Tempe, how do you want to feel? How do you want to experience the built environment? And so public art is a key component of this. And whether that is a permanent fixture or whether that's a temporary experience, as Rebecca mentioned earlier, when it comes down to it, it's all about how we're making people feel within the space that they live or work or visit. And then ultimately, bringing in this strong physical planning. So for us, we're very focused on placemaking, creating those fun experiences and telling that story, and then also physically connecting that to other things the city is trying to accomplish, whether it be enhancing walkability or creating safe spaces for folks, things like that. That we're really interested in public art being a component of all that work. So, and just to be a little bit more specific about planning in general, we'll give it a little planning 101. Tempe has a large scale general plan that focuses on all these other components for the city. This is a master plan, so it is singularly focused on public art, but it is still citywide. And then there are, of course, other other things that this feeds into, whether that might be a specific plan for a development or a site or an area that then the city, when those are done in the future, we can ensure that public art is a component of that. And then this also feeds into codes, regulations, ordinances, all these other things that come out of planning work. So just to give a little bit of an overview of the planning process in general, we are in the kind of midpoint or early midpoint of the process. We spent the early months of our work focused on just creating, mobilizing for the planning process itself. We are working on the community dialogue phase as we are here doing engagement. We have an additional engagement events that are also coming up, both in person, and we have some virtual focus group opportunities. We also have a survey that we'll be talking about more here a little bit later. So then moving past all of that into 2025, into spring of 2025, we'll begin to develop recommendations and then ultimately have a final plan towards the fall of next year. So that's a little bit of an overview of where the process is headed. Some of our upcoming engagement, we are having a really fun event about the past, present, and future of public art in Tempe at the Eisendraft House. That it's a beautiful historic home in Papago Park that is actually where the public art team has their office. And when we were there on our first visit, it was really kind of a fun, inspiring place. So we're going to have some artists that used to have their studios in this space come and speak. And we're hoping to draw folks that both want to learn about this home and the history that occurred there, and then also thinking about the future. We additionally are going to be, and that is on December 5th. And if you go to tempe.gov/PublicArtPlan, I think there is an Eventbrite link that you can RSVP. In addition, we're going to be doing some pop-up engagement events. So that means when we'll be in town and we will pop up at Brick Road Coffee, and then also some of the community centers on December 6th, just to take in a bit more and to be able to talk with folks one-on-one. And maybe catch some folks that haven't already been engaged in the planning process. And we would also encourage all of you who are here to take our survey if you haven't already. And once again, you can access that at tempe.gov/PublicArtPlan. So we encourage folks to join, and as additional engagement opportunities arise, you can always visit tempe.gov/PublicArtPlan to access those both now and in the future. So what we're looking for today is some feedback from this wonderful group of participants to help us shape this plan. So for those of you who signed on earlier, you might have already gotten this brought up, but you can go to menti.com and enter in the code 56723060, or use the QR code that's on the screen if you're using a mobile device to access a tool called Menti that will allow us to do some engagement and hear directly from you, and then hopefully have a conversation as part of the planning process. And for those of you who may be watching this in the future on the recorded video, you can still participate in this, and the results will show live on your screen. So we're doing a little time traveling today for some folks. So we have our first question, and it's kind of a practice question just to get a sense of how this works. And the question is, how long have you lived in Tempe? And so as each one of you enter here, we will see that pop up on the screen, as you can see. And so looking for the results, and we'll give a little bit of time. All right, well, this is maybe the least fun of the questions that we have for you all. But if you see how it works, and if you're still trying to sign on, again, you can go to menti.com and use the code 56723060. So next question. The first real question we have here is, what is your favorite piece of public art in Tempe? So as you all enter in here, your responses will pop up. And then if anyone would like to comment, feel free to, either raise your hand or just unmute yourself. If you have any additional info to add to this, you should also be able to enter in as many responses as you want. If you have more than one piece of public art you love. Okay. Does anybody who has answered want to volunteer to talk about what they loved about the piece that they're indicating? I will say some of these I recognize from my visit. So I think the rabbits are one that I've heard lots of folks talk about, actually. Pieces that are, maybe both beloved and not everyone loves them, but everyone recognizes them. Rebecca, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the McClintock underpass. These folks are adding things
Absolutely.
here.
The McClintock underpass is one that was completed just about 3.5, 4 years ago. It was actually one that started design before the pandemic and was built during the pandemic. Zach Valent is the artist. He is from Tempe. He's an ASU sculpture graduate. And what's interesting about that piece is that it has all the beauty and wonder that a mural on a concrete wall you would want from that, but it's actually a very hardy material. They're powder coated steel and hand cast concrete tiles that he made in his studio. So it's an integrated way of adding really bright, bold, vibrant color. And it's right along the pathway at Rio Salado that goes right near Tempe Marketplace. So it's a good connector. We hear a lot about it. The pattern is designed to mimic honeycomb patterns in relationship to the natural pathway at the Rio Salado. There's a lot of flora, fauna, birds, bees, and others that go through that area. So we're big fans of the little hint to nature, the bright, bold color, and just the reverence for passing through a space that adds vibrancy and that dynamic handmade spirit.
Okay, I'm going to ask one more question for these before we go on, because I know we've talked about this before. Could you talk about the rubber surfaces? I assume that might be referring to a specific park or maybe just some of the parks in general.
Sure. So the Parks Department, as part of Refresh Tempe and part of their ongoing maintenance, goes through each of the neighborhood parks and upgrades the play areas as they're needed. And one thing that they saw as a need a few years back was to replace the sand in the play areas with that rubbery surface. It makes it a lot easier to run and play and jump on. And in doing so, they came to the public art team and said, well, do you think that we could make a little insignia? Maybe there's, more than a hopscotch, which is what you would typically see in that rubber surface in a play area. So in partnership with parks, we started commissioning an artist to create a unique work of art for each park upgrade. And as a result, we've been able to do anywhere from 2 to 3 each year. We've got artists from all over, mostly locally based, frankly, designing these play areas. And it's a super interesting way to engage artwork in a park without taking programmable space away. And that's an important thing to note, that people go to parks because they want to play soccer, they want to play volleyball, they want to run around on a playground, and putting sculptural elements or pieces in the way of that changes the way a program could work. But with the rubber surface, we're able to add all kinds of color and pattern and design to each park, making it really unique.
Thanks, Rebecca. Well, I think we're going to go on to the next question here. So this is a ranking question. So your options are they should be on the side, depending on how you're accessing this. But we'd love if you would rank what types of public art you would like to see more of in Tempe. So we'll give folks some time to do this, but Rebecca, maybe for folks just understanding a little bit, could you talk about, I think some of these are more straightforward. Could you talk a little bit about functional art, which is
Sure.
actually, I think you just described a version of it. Um, but, but would you mind telling us a little bit about what functional art is?
Sure, sure. Functional art is kind of as it sounds, to be honest. It's something that has a purpose and a function, like a bench, right? We need benches in public spaces, but when an artist designs that bench, it becomes unique and different and becomes an artwork that also serves the purpose of allowing you to sit and relax in public space. So, it sometimes allows us to have an artist who is maybe new to building public art because they're working in partnership with a designer or a fabricator who, in the case of benches, creates benches all the time, and they get to put their unique twist on it. Or in the play areas, as I just described, they get to play with this material that they wouldn't use in their studio. And at the same time, it's providing an area of service that the city would typically offer. It just makes it a little bit different, and people recognize it as being special for this site, for this space, and for the city as a whole.
Great. I think that's really helpful. It's interesting to see the way this is playing out, just because we have had a number of conversations so far um, with folks in the community, and I think we heard a lot about folks wanting to see interactive installations, or telling us about their favorite artwork being interactive or temporary installations. Kind of sometimes might go hand in hand. Um, does anyone else want to speak up and just tell us a little bit more about why they ranked things the way that they did?
They're
Not
just going to
everyone
make
all at
you and I
once.
talk.
I know.
This is the Josh and
Which
Rebecca
is
show. Come on.
which is totally okay. But if anyone does want to volunteer, you're welcome to tell us. I think the thing I'll say about functional art too is that it is a medium that has been employed a lot in Tempe. We mentioned the work at the parks, but also I think that a lot of the neighborhood grant artworks have been or could be considered functional art, with mosaics that are on standpipes
Mhm.
throughout some of the neighborhoods. So I think that's certainly another one. And I think that you've also had a lot of kind of the architectural elements that are created by an artist or integrated into different building types. I think that's something we certainly see in the Phoenix region as a whole, and I think there's some examples of that in Tempe.
Absolutely.
Hi,
All
this is,
right,
oh, sorry.
go
This
ahead.
is Christine. So as another staff member, I can say why I find the top three in this list exciting, which is that interactive and temporary artwork can be a really great way for artists to experiment and newer artists to kind of enter the public art sphere. And then functional art, the city has to build itself. So anytime artwork can serve multiple purposes and functions, I think is really exciting. I grew up in Tempe, and there are some functional artworks that I didn't know they were designed by artists, but they provided me shade and some joy as well when I, got to experience a ramada shaped like a t-shirt or, a bus stop shaped like a city. So I think there's a lot of exciting opportunity there.
Thanks, Christine. I have to agree. Anybody else feel free to chime in as we go to the next question. I think this is a really exciting one. I believe you're limited to, because we are limited as well, and how many options you can choose. But if you could choose your top 5 places where you would like to see more public art in Tempe, and then feel free to chime in and tell us why you chose what you chose. So I think this is, so far, is reflecting some of the things that we've heard thus far in our other conversations as well. Neighborhoods in particular, I know, again, a lot of the artwork that has been generated has been through the neighborhood grant program, and we've heard a lot of folks that really love that and want to continue to see that. Parks is another. Rebecca and her team, we already talked about one of the parks opportunities, but particularly in South Tempe, I think a lot of the opportunities do end up being parks, given how the community is sort of laid out. Somebody chose other. I don't know if that person would like to say what their other location is, but feel free to share in the chat as well.
This is Shara. I put other
Yeah.
because I was thinking about art in water. So I know that would fall under parks, either Kiwanis or Tempe Beach. And I'm sure that presents its own challenges too.
Nothing comes without a challenge, but a good challenge to have. Any other folks want to share before we go on to what I think is the last question? Love unexpected places. Okay, this last one is a little bit harder here. What impact should public art have in Tempe? I think, Christine, it was you who said, brought up that public art might bring joy. I think that's a great example of the types of impact that we are looking to bring. Oh, Kim, question, comment.
It wasn't a question. I was going to comment on some spaces I know in North Tempe,
Oh,
particularly
please.
around the preserve, because of course everybody probably on this knows that I'm involved in the preserve. But there are areas that have been fallen into disuse that were kind of, I guess, architectural artwork. One that comes to mind right off the bat is right at College, and I'm going to go blank on the place, right before the underpass under the 202, where there was a lot of brick landscaping, hardscaping in there. To me, that would be a perfect place to put in some kind of connectivity type artwork into the preserve. And that's my only comment.
Awesome, thank you. As more folks are, and I think that sort of also implies the type of impact you would like to have public art have in Tempe. As folks enter their thoughts here, feel free to share as you enter things in. I think I see a few here that sort of have a little bit of a theme about joy and excitement and inspiration and optimism, celebration. I think that is a theme that we hear a lot. Helping connectivity, helping you feel connected to a place. I think in conversations with folks that have worked on neighborhood grants in the past, that's certainly something that they're looking to do, create, inspire, bring people together. Ooh, Instagram, create photo destinations. Anyone else that wants to add, you're welcome to. Go ahead, Kim.
Sorry, I was trying to lower it. Sorry about that.
Well, you're welcome to add too, if you'd like. Well, what I can say is that I think we got some definite fun ideas. Ooh, show the valley how cool Tempe is. Yeah, I think um, one of the things, and we'll use a little AI here to see if we can't see any sentiments from what we're doing. We heard a lot about like the history and the story of Tempe and some of our earlier presentations. And I think that is fun to again bring the unique story of Tempe out into the built environment is also something that could be done. I think that is the last question we have for you. And here's a little bit of the themes that we hear. Again, for those participating online after the fact, you'll be able to contribute and kind of add into this. So we encourage you to do that, and we'll be notified as additional folks add their thoughts. But as we close out, I want to give anyone that's participating an opportunity to ask questions. So feel free to raise your hand. Again, if you're participating after the fact and you have questions, feel free to reach out. You could email me directly if you'd like. My email is josh@designinglocal.com. But we also have additional opportunities for participation and meetings via our survey and focus groups and some other events. So feel free to go to I think it's already been shared in the chat, but you can go to tempe.gov/PublicArtPlan to access those things. Any last words from anyone participating today, Rebecca, before we close out?
No, and if anybody online is like me, sometimes I have to think about things and then questions pop up later. So as Josh just pointed out, we're here. Our website is live. The survey is live. Please take time with that and share with your friends and neighbors. We want to hear from as many people as possible, and feel free to reach out and ask questions at any time.
Well, thank you, Rebecca, and thank you everyone who participated today. We're looking forward to getting additional feedback, and hopefully we'll see you in person at some of our future events.